Daniel Harper, a 36-year-old man living in the quiet suburbs of Oregon, wasn't the superstitious type. He didn't scare easily. His life was simple. He worked as an accountant, went fishing on weekends, and shared his home with a tabby cat named Murphy. He didn't care much for social media, and he certainly didn't believe in conspiracy theories. That evening, Daniel was sitting alone in his small room, the soft yellow glow of a desk lamp painting shadows on the wall. Outside, light rain whispered against the window, like background music from an old record. He had just finished dinner when a random idea crossed his mind: to look up his family's genealogy through a public civil records site. Just a harmless habit for the mildly curious. Out of impulse, he typed in his own name. Daniel Harper. A simple search. Seconds later, the results appeared. And that's when everything changed. Right there on the screen was a death record. Name, Daniel Harper. Date of birth, February 3rd, 1989. Date of death, June 17th, 2017. Status, verified. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The coffee cup in his hand trembled slightly. He wiped his face with his palm, eyes locked on the screen. The words seemed to etch themselves into his vision. Deceased. He let out a nervous chuckle, half expecting it to be a system glitch. He hit reload. Same result. He entered his social security number, just to be sure. This time the match was even more exact. Every detail lined up. Every number, even an old home address. Everything was correct. Everything but one thing. Daniel was still alive, and his lips dried. A chill climbed his spine. The air in the room thickened, heavy and unmoving. His name, his identity, something he had always taken for granted, now existed in a space meant only for the dead. He stood up, paced a few steps, then turned back to the screen. Questions began spinning in his mind. Is this a technical error? Someone with the same name? Or did someone do this on purpose? His eyes drifted toward Murphy, curled up peacefully on the sofa. The cat was still asleep, as if nothing had changed. But for Daniel, that moment marked the beginning of a long nightmare. One he never saw coming. The next day, Daniel couldn't sleep. The morning sun spilled through the window, but it wasn't enough to chase away the cold left behind by the night before. As soon as he could, he drove to the local administrative office to check his personal records. In his mind, it still could have been a simple mistake. Maybe a glitch in the system. Maybe someone with the same name. A clerical error, perhaps. But when he got there, things got worse. The receptionist looked over his documents, furrowed her brow, and asked, "You said your name is Daniel Harper." "Yes," he replied. She hesitated. "I'm sorry, but according to the national database, the person with this information passed away 8 years ago." Daniel gave a nervous laugh. He handed over his ID, social security card, driver's license, everything proving he was alive. But the system couldn't recognize him. No duplicate copies could be printed. No access to his tax records. To the government, he didn't exist anymore. Things only got worse. A few hours later, his bank card was declined at an ATM. His email account locked him out, showing authentication failed. When he called customer support, he was met with a cold, repetitive response. "We're sorry. The user profile has been deactivated due to recorded death." Daniel returned home with trembling hands. He didn't know how to explain it to his friends. Some even joked that he was dreaming. But to Daniel, the fear had become real. He sat on the floor of his living room, opened his laptop, and began trying to trace the death that, as far as he knew, never happened. He accessed the state's medical database, the official repository for death certificates. After several layers of verification, he uncovered a name that stood out: Dr. Richard Calloway, the physician who signed off on Daniel's death certificate. A man based in a hospital just outside of Portland, a place Daniel had never even visited. Something felt wrong. Daniel started digging into the doctor's background. The deeper he went, the more disturbing things he found. At least 2 other people had been declared dead by the same doctor, only to vanish from all civil records afterward. One of them had contacted the police, but the case was quietly closed without explanation. Daniel was beginning to understand this wasn't a random mistake. Someone had deliberately erased him. But why? And more importantly, who was behind it all? The nightmare didn't end with Daniel's name appearing in the death records. After what he had discovered about Dr. Calloway, fear slowly gave way to obsession. Daniel made the decision to drive to the hospital where the doctor had once worked. A crumbling old building on the edge of a forest, over an hour from the city. As he drove, an eerie feeling clung to him, like something or someone was watching, as if invisible eyes tracked his every move. The hospital looked half abandoned. Flickering lights, long narrow corridors. Doors left slightly ajar. Daniel posed as a relative of a former patient and asked to review archival records from 2017. After a few rounds of questioning, an elderly staff member reluctantly led him to a dusty records room. Inside were shelves stacked with old neglected files. He eventually found one marked Harper, Daniel, time of death, June 17th, 2017. But the next page made him freeze. The photograph in the file wasn't his, it was someone else. Yet the information matched exactly. Birth date, address, social security number. It appeared that an unknown man had been assigned Daniel's identity and had died in a car crash. That man was the one officially recorded as Daniel Harper. A handwritten note in the corner sent chills down his spine. Process quickly, no next of kin verification required. That was not legal. By law, all death certifications require a family member to confirm identity, unless there were special circumstances. Someone had pulled the plug on a stranger's life, using Daniel's name. That night, back home, Daniel reopened his map. He traced the location of the accident and was struck by something else. It had happened just 3 blocks from his old house. But in 2017, the year of the crash, Daniel had been living in an entirely different state. He had proof of utility bills, photos, even location data from his phone. This was no coincidence. It wasn't a mistake. It was identity theft, deliberate and planned. Someone had died, and Daniel Harper had been buried with him. The question that now gnawed at Daniel's mind: who chose his name? And why? Could it have been random? Or worse, had Daniel been selected for a reason? From that day on, Daniel Harper lived like a shadow. He still breathed, he still ate, he still slept. But to the world, he was dead. Every day he tried to reclaim his identity, sending dozens of emails, making countless phone calls. But somewhere in the background, it felt like something invisible was always standing in his way. Every time he found a lead, it vanished. Every door that cracked open slammed shut again, as if someone or something was always one step ahead. The police refused to reopen the 2017 accident file. Dr. Calloway had mysteriously disappeared years ago, and everyone involved in signing off Daniel's death certificate. Gone, resigned, relocated, unreachable. That's when Daniel began to suspect something he could barely say out loud. There is a system or a force that chose him to be erased. Not a glitch, not a mistake, but a deliberate disappearance. He began documenting everything. Testimonies, evidence, files, even the unexplainable. He started speaking to a camera each night, recording his thoughts like confessions, as if one day someone might need to hear them. As if this message was meant for whoever came next. And then one night, Daniel looked straight into the lens. His fear was gone. What replaced it was a cold, quiet acceptance. I'm no longer the Daniel Harper that people once knew. If you're watching this video, maybe you've seen your name somewhere it shouldn't be. And if that ever happens, don't ignore it. Don't tell yourself it's just a system error. Because when the world records you as dead, sometimes it's not a mistake. It's the final warning. Before someone really comes for you. The screen slowly fades to black. The sound of a ticking clock slows and stops. Then a final line appears. Too late or right on time.